This is the lecture for Aaron Wolf's Reviving Concurrentism about Death. And I guess it's basically optional. Maybe the first point might be helpful, and then after that, the second point is definitely optional. So the first point on page 183, he says, there it is. Approaches to intrinsic well-being should take it as a starting point that it, so intrinsic well-being, supervenes on robust states a person is in, and non-existent people aren't in such states. So the thought is that we have this thing called intrinsic well-being, and we're trying to understand what it is. So we can imagine like different ways of understanding what it is, different approaches. And no matter which approach we take, no matter which theory of intrinsic well-being we pick, it should take it as a starting point that intrinsic well-being supervenes on robust states a person is in. So it doesn't really matter what a robust state is. But this word supervenes, just to sort of explain what that is. So the simplest way of understanding it, or the shortest way of understanding it, is supervenience says so if one thing supervenes on another thing, then you can't change the first thing without changing the second thing. So for instance, we typically think the color of my shirt supervenes on the arrangement of molecules in the shirt. So you can't change the color of the shirt without changing something about the molecules. Or I said arrangement, I should have said properties and stuff. Unless you change the molecules that make up the shirt, you can't change the shirt's color. You have to, I don't know, paint it or dye it or something. You have to do something to the molecules in the shirt to change its color. Or we might think the height of someone supervenes on the cells in their body or whatever. You can't change somebody's height without changing at least some of the cells in their body. There's no way for somebody to get taller or shorter without the cells that make up their body, or at least some cells that make up their body, changing. So some things supervene on other things, and some things don't supervene on other things. So for instance, the length of a movie does not supervene on the scenes in the movie, or the number of scenes in a movie. Sorry, because you could change the length of a movie without changing the number of scenes just by shortening some of the scenes. You cut like 10 seconds from one scene, 5 seconds from another scene. You still have the same scenes, but different length. So some things supervene on other things, some things don't supervene on other things. So that's just what supervenience is. So when he says, approaches to intrinsic well-being should take it as a starting point that intrinsic well-being supervenes on robust states a person is in. The idea is, well, look, we shouldn't be able to change somebody's well-being, their intrinsic well-being, without changing some of the states a person is in. It's not like we could make you better or worse without changing something about the states that you're in. How could your life get better, or how could your life get worse, unless the state that you're in gets better or worse, unless something happens to you, basically. And that brings us to the second point in the lecture. And at this point, the lecture gets optional. We're just going to talk about an interesting topic, and you can keep listening or not, depending on how interesting you find it. And the topic we're going to talk about is well-being. And so what we get on 183 is some discussion about well-being. And as he puts it here, or actually he doesn't put it here, but so, well-being is about how your life is going. It's a measurement of, is your life going good or bad, or how good or bad is it going? How well or badly are you doing? When you ask, how are you doing? You're asking about someone's well-being at that moment. And then we might be interested not just in someone's well-being at a moment, but maybe their well-being over their entire lifetime. So you might ask, was somebody's life a good life or a bad life, or how good was it, or how bad was it? So this is the question of well-being. It's a big subject in philosophy. It's a subject I work on. And we get here a nice kind of introduction to it because he goes through the three main theories of well-being in philosophy. And so we'll just briefly summarize this so you can start thinking about the topic if you find it interesting. So the first he talks about is hedonism. Uh, According to hedonism, people don't receive intrinsic goods or evils when they're gone because they don't experience pain or pleasure. And so, as you can maybe guess, according to hedonism, it's pain and pleasure that consist of well-being. So well-being consists of how much pleasure you have minus how much pain you have. So at any given moment, you have X amount of pleasure and Y amount of pain. So we subtract Y from X, and that's how well your life is going. Your life is going well if you're experiencing pleasure, and it's not going well if you're not experiencing a lot of pleasure or if you're experiencing lots of pain. So that's hedonism. To look at how well somebody's life is going, we look at how much pleasure and pain they're in. Then he talks about desire satisfactionism. A desire that doesn't exist can't be fulfilled. And so, as you might guess, desire satisfactionism about well being says your life is going better when your desires are being fulfilled, and your life is going worse when your desires are being frustrated. So, if you want to eat food or something and you're eating food, then your life is going well. If you want to eat food but you're not eating food, you're going hungry or something, then your life is not going well. If you want to be, I don't know, a rock star and you're a rock star, then your life is going well. If you want to be a rock star but you're working in an office, then your life is not going well. So satisfied desires contribute to well-being, and frustrated desires do not contribute to well-being. And then finally, there's objective list views. The objective list views should also involve the idea that people don't receive intrinsic well-being after they've died. The sorts of things one paradigmatically finds on the list of values, things like love, friendship, knowledge, and integrity, can only be had by the living. So as you might guess, the objective list view says that well-being consists of getting stuff on the list of values. What is the list of values? Well, there's just an objective list. It's not different from person to person. It's just there's a list of things that are good for human beings. And the more of these things you have, the better your life is going. So love is on the list. Friendship's on the list. Knowledge is on the list. Integrity is on the list. All sorts of stuff on the list. Different theories have different views about what's on the list. But an objective list view says, you have these things, they're good for you. It doesn't matter if they're pleasurable. So objective list denies hedonism. It doesn't matter if you desire things on the list. Let's say you don't want to have love, or you don't want any friends. Too bad. The objective list says it doesn't matter what you think. Your life is going better if people love you, or if you love other people, and if your life is going better if you have friends, even if you don't want friends and stuff. So there are other theories of well-being. These aren't the only three, but these are sort of the three main categories. There's different kinds of theories within each category. So some hedonists are sort of very simple hedonists. It's just like simple pleasures and pains, like bodily pleasures and pains are the only ones that matter. Others are more complicated hedonists. They think there's different kinds of pleasures, and some pleasures are more important than other kinds of pleasures. Some famous hedonists are Bentham, Jeremy Bentham, and John Stuart Mill. Jeremy Bentham was like a simple hedonist. Any kind of pleasure is just as good as any other kind of pleasure. John Stuart Mill had a sort of two-level view of pleasure. There's the higher pleasures and the lower pleasures. The higher pleasures were like intellectual pleasures, and he thought they were so much more important than the lower pleasures, which are bodily pleasures, that any amount of higher pleasure is better than any amount of lower pleasure. There's different kinds of views about desire satisfaction. So some people think any desire that is satisfied contributes to your well-being. Some people think, oh, it's only informed desires. So let's say you desire to drink alcohol and stuff, but really if you thought it through, you wouldn't want alcohol. You would know it's bad for you. Well, then they say that desire doesn't count, because if you were fully informed, that you wouldn't have that desire. So there's different kinds of desire satisfaction views. And like I said before, there's different kinds of objective list views because people disagree about what goes on the list. So that's well-being, big topic of study. If you're interested about it, you can talk with me sometime.